been about 3 months since we've been in this joint. It's nice to be back in here. I was telling you, I was happy to see our podcast is still on the wall.
Made it on the wall.
We're still
Or
on the
we're
wall.
Still on the wall.
Thank you, Ari, Sebastian, Brian, everyone that's part of this. We were supposed to have a special relaunch episode with a certain individual, but it didn't work out. But I think it's important anyways. This was an episode.
I hope he's okay.
Hope he's okay too.
Yeah.
But other than that, look, there's a lot of people have asked for this, people we know and people that follow our show. And we don't talk about ourselves as much. And personally, for me, over the last few months, I've had to think about 6 people that I've known, a few of them very close to me, and have died from fentanyl overdoses. Heroin laced with fentanyl. And in the past few years, I got sober on December 7th of 2018. So everything going according to plan, it'll be 3 years this December. But over the last few years, maybe almost 20 people close to me dead, and it's an interesting thing. So really, point is, this episode is about us. So, the other people that are here for the prison stuff or whatever we've done, the murder redemption stuff, this is not that. This is us. This is talking about how we got here, our addictions, because there's a lot of people that follow us that are addicts, struggling, recovering addicts. Their families reach out to us, emails, DMs, comments, things like that. So to give perspective on who we are and what we deal with, because there's some real shit going on. Like, it was interesting. I was talking to a few of my friends, and Shane doesn't know this, but I have my group of friends that I grew up with, and then I have my sober friends, and in that sober community, it's become a very normal thing, death. But if you talk about death with overdoses and just I guess with normal people, it's a big fucking deal, and it's sad to have come to the point where we're desensitized to death like this. Have you been experiencing that in your circle, in your life, over the past few years that you stopped using heroin?
I lost two of my closest friends like fairly early on. We were in one of my best friends, TC, passed away like in our early 20s from a heroin overdose, and then my other very, very close friend, Bryce, who I knew for 20 plus years, it was my roommate actually before I ended up coming out here for treatment, passed away in like my late 20s. But those were like people that would have been at my wedding, and I knew and still close with their families and grew up with their siblings, and like went on just traveled together, lived together, went to college together, were high school together. Like, so early on, like it was there. But then like coming out and like getting sober and trying to get my life together, like when you're entrenched in that circle, like it's a numbers game. Because you group a bunch of people, heroin addicts together and whatever addicts together, and you're getting sober, and you're like, you form in these communities and in these rooms and whatever. There's a lot of death, there's a lot of sickness, and it becomes more relevant or prevalent. And especially when you're like awakened and connected, then you're like, holy shit. But you do become desensitized to it. It was like, oh yeah, that was like a good dude.
Of course.
He had a lot, he had a lot to share and a lot to give to the world. But like, that good dude's family is now in shambles, and the people that are around him that were in his little group are in shambles. And it is a shame that you become desensitized, because at the end of the day, they're human beings too. And
yeah,
it's sad the amount, although you say that, I bet more now than not, just how prevalent it is even in like normal people's lives. Not saying we're not normal, but people that aren't addicts, right? Everyone's been affected by this. It's truly an epidemic of proportionate scales, and
it's on a major scale. Do you ever think with all this death that's happening, like I think all the time that like I should be dead, and I don't say that too. I say that again in the circles of people that are also sober. Like, it seems more outlandish when I tell it just to my normal family members, friends, or whatever. But truly, like the scars, like the people listening, they can't see it. But if you looking on the camera, like these are just, I'm riddled with like abscesses. I had about a $300-400 a day habit of heroin and cocaine. And there's people out there right now that are just buying little bits of heroin laced with fentanyl, and they're dying. And so that whole fentanyl thing started about around the time that I was starting to get sober. So I literally got out while the getting was good, so to speak, though it was torture.
Yeah.
Do you have that same sentiment? Like the amount of drugs you were doing, the way you were ruining your life, you should be dead right now? Or does that cross your mind?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I didn't. Yeah, I mean, like
Yeah,
I was a drug dealer. I ran around in some very, very dark, violent circles.
sure.
I became a pariah later in my use and just hoarded money and drugs and kind of lived in this cave. But yeah, I mean, there's been many times that I've probably overdosed also and just woke up and shrugged it off like nothing happened. It was the time actually I've been like shooting coke and heroin, and I had like picked my face and I was very, very skinny and pale. And I remember like one of my closest friends, he's very strong, he's boisterous, he's loud, but he's like my guy. Italian kid, saw me and like broke down. And like this
Damn.
kid isn't someone to tear up or cry, but he like was in tears and he like shoved me against the wall and pretty much had his hand like on my throat and chest and was like, "We can't afford to lose you.
Hmm.
Like us as a group in the world, like you have too much to offer. Like TC and Bryce are gone. Like it can't be, you can't leave us, you know?" And it was like in that moment ended up failing like miserably, because the plan was like I was gonna move to Philadelphia with
Yeah.
him and I was gonna get sober in his basement and we were gonna like do this together. And the truth is like he gave me his car. I would go to like the casino at night and then I'd go to North Philadelphia to cop heroin while he was asleep or at work. And like
Yeah.
I ended up overdosing when I came back from his house in Dallas. My youngest brother found me on the floor and it was from fentanyl. I didn't know fentanyl what it was, but it was
Yeah.
back then. It was 2016 at that time. But fentanyl is much more prevalent on the East Coast. Now it's more prevalent everywhere.
Sure.
Long story short, I ended up, falling out in my brother. Thank God that happened, because then I ended up in California and got sober.
That was preceding the first time I met you in treatment?
Yeah, that was 2015.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we met in 2016 when you
yeah.
got out of jail.
Correct.
When I was already at the treatment center.
Correct. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
there for a little bit.
So, to your point, yes, I should be dead 10 times, 100 times over.
100 times over.
But I never really felt it. And I don't think any drug addict really does feel it when they're in the midst of doing it.
I was explaining that I had one of my old childhood friends. I became friends through treatment with his brother recently, and we were at his funeral, and non-addicts there, whatever, just asking questions like, how could this happen? He had so much to live for. He was doing so well, this, that, whatever. And I tried to explain to him, it's like, look, man, like when someone's getting high, when you made that decision, you're not thinking that like it's going to happen to you. Like there's always a story we're going to sell ourselves as to like why it's going to be okay, why it's not going to be me. All you're thinking of is just getting high. And then maybe, I don't know, for me, what I'm about to eat next. Like I just want to get high.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking that like I'm going to lose my family. My family's going to be, I don't have kids, but if I had kids, I'd be childless, this, that, whatever. When I was on probation, I'm not going to fail a drug test. I'm not going to miss work. I'm not going to end up on the street, spend my own. I don't think that. All I'm thinking about is right now I'm going to get high. So in the mind of an addict, it would be hard for me to say that unless someone's suicidal, that like they're thinking they're going to die. Your main priority is just to get high.
Yeah.
So even if you have those sick jokes or this, that, or whatever, the fact is like you don't think it's going to be you. And that was my story for ages. I think it was one of the core issues of mine. I thought rules didn't apply to me. And that kept me in a deep active addiction for about 10 to 12 years, thinking I won't die, thinking I'm going to cheat the system, thinking I'm fooling everyone else. And I destroyed my life. I mean, you and I grew up with families of like considerable means. Like we never had to struggle until we made ourselves struggle. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna, kind of move to that point. Is like my parents immigrated here. They broke their back to give me and my two brothers like a life that, a good, very, very good life. A life that they didn't have growing up.
Sure.
That being said, like I also didn't grow up like afflicted with anything. I had a very, very happy, and it doesn't mean, I'm not saying people aren't born with the ism.
Fair.
I think, some people are more predisposition to it, in the way that they grew up, in the society that they grew up. But like my parents didn't drink, they didn't smoke, they ran a pretty tight ship. Do your homework, be, instilled value and love and kindness and compassion, and like I still ended up like having a propensity to like do whatever the fuck I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And it started out when I was younger in school of like, I didn't need to cheat, but I enjoyed like breaking into teachers' classrooms and stealing the test answers.
Yeah.
And then flooding it to everyone in that were my homies so that like they didn't have to study. But like I knew the material and I didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
So it's like, why I just had like I liked always like the action, if that makes sense.
It
I
does
like the
make
blood
sense.
to pump. I like to stir some shit up.
You like to feel.
And then I also I like to feel. I'm a seeker, right?
Yeah, you like to feel.
And then like that came with consequences and whatever, but like it's like, oh yeah, that's Shane. So he always got away with it.
Yeah.
You know? I think that really hindered me too because
again, you think things don't apply to you.
the selfishness and self-centeredness like really affected people beyond the drugs, but like at a younger age on a deep level that like I can only connect the dots to after the fact, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on what you said about the self-seeking thing. It's a major thing I wanted to talk about because I'm sure it's common in both of our stories. The self-seeking behavior through our addiction turning into hurting people, the people we hurt as we're tearing our lives down. And a lot of people probably want to figure out how to come back from that because I devastated people. And I'm sure you devastated people through actions like that you're talking about, okay. But I'm sure through years of drug use, you hurt people, you let people down, you disappointed people, you fucked them over, whatever. And that's what I did. And again, people looked at me in the similar way. Oh, that's Mason. He'll get away with it. A pedestal, this, or whatever you want to call it. But there was a time where literally I had it all, right? Similar to like what you're saying. And I burnt that shit down and I became very good at thinking, I was thinking I'm a good liar, lying about who I was. But that turned into me cutting corners kind of like you were doing, trying to skate by, whatever. And then it manifested into devastating people later on in active addiction. And it's taken me a few years. I just literally have seen my stepdad who I hadn't seen in 7 years. I've been sober for almost 3. Talk about healing processes, right? This time around getting sober, there was a kind of a light bulb that went on my head, I guess, because I would try to get sober in the past and think about all the people I hurt, and I'd be like, they don't understand that like I'm doing better now. They need to forgive me, like almost like they owed it to me. And I would get so frustrated, man, like with my friends, family members, shit like that. But I wouldn't understand the hurt that I did stemming from actions in early childhood or when you're younger, then how it manifested to something larger in addiction, like you were talking about. You following me so far?
Yeah.
And so this time around, dude, because before I would always be selling myself. I'd always be selling myself. I'm doing so well. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And after years of, again, going from Norco use to OxyContin use to smoking heroin to shooting heroin to mixing heroin with cocaine and then being a violent criminal, being a non-violent criminal, in jail, out of jail, rehabs, you let a lot of people down and you hurt people. What would you say, I guess it comes to in step work, like for you, like an amends process to fix damage you do to people? Because to me, it was literally trying just to do my best and not sell myself to people and being okay with a faith in the process where it's like, I'm going to do my best and people are going to see that I'm doing better or they're not, because I believe I'm doing better and I'm going to either prove that. And and people's opinions just vary. It's just a matter of opinion at that point in time. Did you take on a similar attitude to start working on repairing things, or was yours completely different than mine?
Well, no. First of all, I'm glad that you reconnected with your stepfather, and I've seen you come a tremendous long way, and I'm super, super proud of you. And
thank you.
I know your loved ones and the closest ones to you are all reaping the benefits of that, and then most importantly, you yourself.
Thanks.
I think, of course, I think the first thing for me is like, how can you correct something that you did in the past if you're not on a straightened path yourself? And then, like, for example, because it's the closest thing is like my parents and my home life. The 7 to 10 years or it was that my parents knew that I was an IV junkie, like it was going to be a race because I'm like 6 months sober at a treatment center when like I wasn't even really sober, but like the shallowness to like think that even like scratches the surface is like, but like I didn't know better at the time.
Sure.
So I guess it's like my parent, and now it's different, but like it was always like, when is the shoe gonna fall off the other foot type attitude. Oh, he got kicked out of treatment. oh, he's in the hospital now, like, oh, he's here, like, it's like, for me, it's really like, it comes more with action than words.
Of
Like,
course.
put in the work and the actions will show, and then you can have that conversation when it's not so like, how many times did I sit down and have like kind of mini family interventions and think that this was going to be it, and like I'm straightening up,
Yeah.
whatever, and like legitimately 24 hours later I have a needle in my neck, like maybe 50, 60 times.
And I'm sure it's true for a lot of people watching this. That's why it's important to bring this up.
Yeah.
Because that would fuck my sobriety up. Because I would be, even though I think I was getting sober for the wrong reasons, like I was forced to or whatever, but I was thinking I'm doing relatively well compared to how bad I was doing, right?
Right. But another thing as well is like, I learned this a little bit later on as well. I think I was like a year sober, a year and a half sober. It's like, it's not on my time.
Correct.
The
That's
people
the point.
that I hurt and the things that I did, like, just because I'm like getting my stuff together and I'm much better than I was then, doesn't mean that those people that I harmed are even ready to have that conversation.
Exactly. That's the same point. Going with my stepfather, dude. To this point in time in this day, like I've made like amends and made things right with as many people as possible. I don't live with many regrets of all the crimes I committed, the drugs I've done, the people I let down. Like I know I can do my best, but like my old ex-girlfriend, she won't even speak to me still. You know how amazing it would be to be able to speak and to be able to make things right, look at her in the eye and apologize for the immense harm I've done. That's fucking crazy. Back years ago when I'd be trying to get sober, I was so wrapped up in that. I need to talk to her. I need to do this. She can't forgive me. And it would make me feel so much less than. Same thing with family. Why won't this person talk to me? I'm doing this. Don't they see this? Didn't they hear this? Now my whole identity is tied into basically getting validation from these people. So this time around, I've arrived at a point where it's just like, look, man, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to treat other women that I encounter better than I ever treated her. And if and not better than I ever treated her, better than I could have, because I wasn't capable of treating her properly or seeing things like that. And that's the only way you can make sort of a living amends to that. And that's a radical shift. It's a radical shift.
Sure.
Other than being like, she needs to talk to me. She needs to hear my apology. She doesn't need to hear shit.
Right.
Basically,
and then also, exactly.
it should be fuck me, because it should be fuck me with the amount of harm I've done. The humiliation and the fucking disrespect is just such on an unbelievable level. It sickens me. So that's one regret I live with, and that fuels me going forward. So for people that listen and watch this shit, it's not unique to me that people have hurt the people that they love and they can't express that love properly because they're so wrapped in their own shit, right? So that radical shift, I think, came from a place of having faith in a process, but having faith in changing begets patience, right? If you don't have patience, nothing's going to change, I believe.
Yeah, and then I agree.
And you can't heal.
Well, and then the whole thing is like, for me, graduating from like selling an ounce of pot to like going to pick up 50 or 100 in the Bay with my brother didn't happen overnight.
No.
Me taking one Norco to me slamming 3.1 grams or 3.5, whatever it was, of black tar didn't happen overnight. No. So the same fact of like getting into this process of living a different life does not happen overnight. And of course, like, I'm from the mindset of like, I need shit now.
Of course.
Like I'm very transactional in a lot of things that I used to do.
Instant gratification, right?
Yeah, that's why like, why would I want to go get a salary job when I can just sell drugs and like boom, just make that, like boom boom boom, like fast. Make plays, right? Yeah. But it's not sustainable.
No. Never is.
Yeah, and then the other thing is like, you know, part of what you touched on as well is like that. I wanted to say, like, your girlfriend, for example, is your ex-girlfriend. Excuse me. It's like, she might never reach out to you again.
Never, nor should she.
Right, and that's okay.
Yeah. It's
like, you obviously, it'd be amazing for you to mend that harm for her and for you, for the both of you. But like, whether that comes or doesn't come, it sounds like you've already made, moving forward.
There's peace with that.
Right, and then. That's the biggest thing though too, is like, you have to be clearing up your side and doing what you need to do in order to even be mature enough to have those conversations, because people can feel like the lip service, and then people can feel it when it's from the heart. Sure. Like for TC's parents, for example.
Yeah.
And I keep in touch with them, and I wish I would have been able to go out. He has like an annual poker tournament. They have them in Arizona State in Tempe, and they have a golf tournament there every year. COVID, it was a little weird, and then they have a poker tournament because his sister just moved to Colorado, and so they have one there as well. like I spoke at his memorial, and I made like point blank declarations that I was gonna like fill the void that like TC is gone, and I'm gonna fill the void within his family, for his sister, for the years to come.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that.
Damn.
And I said it in front of an auditorium of maybe 300 to 500 people, right? I was like literally shooting heroin the next hour and a half after I gave that talk. And then I like kind of like showed up, and then I completely flaked on his family for like a couple years. So when I reached back out to them, they were like, yo, we're fucking furious with you. Fuck. Like, I don't even, like, you're sober, great, but like, what happened to the Shane that was up at the memorial service doing this lip service? My point is, it took me like a year and a half, I think maybe even longer than that, until I like was even given the okay to fly out. I think it was his 3rd or 4th annual golf tournament to actually go and like see his mom and his sister and his dad. And like, that was one of the most profound kind of like amends or making up with people in my life, is like, it took a time. It was a process. Yeah. And I didn't get discouraged when they were like, yo, we want nothing to do with you. Yeah. It's about using, you know, tact and common sense about when to reach out again. Correct. To be like, hey, like, and the truth is like, I wasn't I was selfish and all these things, but like, I was just a lost dude that was like trying to like make up for hurt with like filling it with drugs and with women and with all of these other things. Like, I love their son immensely, and they know that. Yeah. That doesn't mean that I didn't harm them with the things that I said and the actions that I neglected to take, especially when they were at the most vulnerable point in their lives. Yeah. Every holiday, every birthday, like, he's gone, and he was a force. Like, he was a presence. Yeah. But like, they told me that I bring a piece of him with me when I see them. So to like strip them of that during all of that, I don't blame them. Yeah. But like, thank God in the universe today that like we've mended the relationship, and I reach out to them, and we stay in touch, and we send each other pictures, and it's like, that's really like what this process is about. Sure. You know, you can be great in the rooms or like a fantastic sponsor, but like, we're out here like watching your feet. What are you doing when nobody's watching?
When no one's watching, on the day-to-day shit.
Like, don't fucking tell me about it. Like, talk to the people that are closest to me.
Of course.
Right? Like, you wanna see how changed of a man I am? Talk to my mom. Talk to my dad. Talk to my brothers. Right? Like, because I used to be a black sheep and a liability within my family.
With everyone.
Today, my mom, who's the rock and bedrock and my queen, and adore her and love her, and I wouldn't be here without her. But like, when she has problems, she calls me. Yeah. I used to be like, my parents used to talk about which kid are we burying first, Shane or Dean? Like, which one's going in the ground first? Sure. And today it's like, they have a problem. I've almost like taken the position of being the steadfast rock in the family. Sure. And like, of course, I have a bunch of work that I still need to do, but to be able to even be in that place in the short amount of time that it's taken is remarkable.
Yeah, you're a human, of course.
And that's what I want to say to like anybody out there struggling, is like, I don't have a monopoly on this shit. I was just a flawed dude. I won't even say flawed. I was just lost.
Yeah, but lost. I'm still flawed at this point in time, and that's another thing.
I mean, it's always, look, it's if you're not continuing doing the work in some capacity in your life, then it's just like that stagnation is dangerous. And it's especially dangerous for people that have a, you know, higher threshold or propensity to like do self-harm and do drugs and do things that can actually kill you.
Yeah, especially now. Again, back to what we initially talked about. Fentanyl's ending lives. It's in everything. People here that produce the show. Yeah, I just read
an article, though. Some comedians in Venice were snorting some coke.
And then just, that's it. Pressed pills. I have younger siblings that are going to college, senior year of high school. Kids like taking Xanax, man. Fucking pressed pills will wipe you out.
I've been seeing posts, like, just because I know a lot of people that work and are therapists and whatever. And they're like, if you need, like, fentanyl testing kits for your drugs, like, if you're going to be using drugs, at least be safe about it. Like, that's fucking crazy.
It is fucking crazy.
Because like if I were using drugs like now in the quantities that I were using, I would for sure be dead.
Yeah. That's exactly.
I didn't worry about is there fentanyl in here. I'm like, how strong is the tar? I wasn't like,
that's it.
That's very, very scary.
That was never a concern to me.
Dude. I'm almost grateful for that too, because it like, today I wouldn't jeopardize. I wouldn't
your life. Yeah, you'll jeopardize your life if you want to get high on that stuff these days after being sober. It's not even just like, oh, I got sober and I shot a lot of heroin and died. People are smoking, sniffing things, dying. Right. So it's almost like if you want to get high, you're mildly suicidal.
But that's the scary part is like, because I know that when you're wrapped up in it, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, and this is another shit I want to talk about. How do you get hooked on heroin in the first place? I'll tell you this. So my story of being hooked on heroin. I used to think I was better than people because I sniffed OxyContin, OC80s, the fucking old school ones before we became OPs, and M30 Roxys, dude. They call them Perk 30s. That's what the kids call them these days. And I thought it was a big deal, especially the first time I went to treatment at 21 years old, 20 going on 21, and I never did heroin. It was never a thing. And after I went to treatment and got out of treatment, I was quote unquote sober compared to what I was doing. But obviously, I was drinking a lot because I turned 21. My friends were promoters in Hollywood, so I'm going to clubs, doing lots of coke, getting with chicks, living whatever, thinking I'm somebody when I'm not shit, but sure felt like I was, and led myself back to Xanax, then back to Norcos, back to Roxy's. And after a while, I started really fucking up my parents' trust. Mind you, I'm on probation. I got into an altercation with someone close to me, and I got charged with assault with a deadly weapon. My life started unraveling at that point in time, but I still had this air about me that things didn't apply to me. I'm better than you because you do heroin, and I only do pills. Like, it was justified. It's prescribed by a doctor, so I would look down on people and say, I will never do heroin. I come from a nice family. How can I get addicted to that? I made up a story. Well, because I played hockey, this took as fake, which I did knock out playing hockey and stuff like that. But that's how I got hooked on painkillers. And the fact is, I stole my mom's painkillers. They were really good. Even when I threw up, they were really good. And then I realized that, guess what? I don't have to drink as much when I take Norcos or some Xanax when I drink beer. So I'm going to do that. And then it made me feel complete, right? But years later, I was kicked out of my house on the streets and homeless for the first time, and a friend took me in far away. So I'm from the valley in Calabasas, West Hills, and I'm fucking 30, 40 minutes away in like Ventura and Oxnard. And I'm driving out to the valley from Ventura and Oxnard. I have no job, no money. I'm fucking pathetic. And I'm buying about 5 Norcos for like, I don't know, $40, just getting ripped off. But like, that's what I needed. That's where like my habit was. Or 8 Norcos for $40, whatever, $5 a pill. So that was my habit, but it was enough of a habit for me to be sick. And one day I was just desperately sick, and this fucking buddy of mine is more of a junkie buddy, sitting there smoking some shit, but I'm sick, and the fucking Norco dealer's taking forever and ever. He's not showing up, and I'm like, they start getting the shakes and the sweats and the stomach is about to start running, dude, about to shit myself essentially in the goddamn car with this fucking weirdo. Even though I'm a weirdo, I'm hanging out with him, but he was more of a weirdo in my mind, whatever. And he looks at me, he's like, dude, and he was much smarter than me. It never occurred to me because I'm so sick. He goes, why are you driving out here spending $30 in gas and, an hour, almost an hour each way, paying $5 to $8 for fucking Norcos, when if you just spend $40 and buy this shit, you won't have to come out here as much and you'll be much more high. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I was like, fuck it, like, I'm sick. Like, if I hit that, will I feel better? Of course I knew the fucking answer, but this is me negotiating with myself as to like how I'm going to justify going from I'm better than you because I never do heroin to doing heroin. So he gives me the foil, I smoke, and it was fucking fantastic. And there's no lie about it. Heroin is absolutely a fantastic drug. The feeling is fantastic. Everything that comes with it, though, that's the lie of the drug because it destroys your life. From that point on, it was fucking on. There's no going back to Roxy's. There's no going back to fucking taking pills. And the justification at that point in time in the insanity is this is a financial move for me. That's where your crazy head goes. I'm doing this because I shouldn't be driving out here. And that's really not cost effective to be fucking buying Norcos or $20 Roxys when I can get a $40 bag of heroin and smoke this for a couple of days because my tolerance is low. Lo and behold, a week later, the habits doubled to about $80 a day. And it compounds and compounds and compounds. So the point is, heroin addiction, getting into that stems from an easy opiate addiction. It's the same damn thing, in my opinion. I mean, maybe the science backs that up. I don't know. But they're literally the same things. They operate on the same part of your brain, right? So I equate that to like my 10 milligram Norcos versus heroin. It's like a Bud Light versus a shot of whiskey. It's still alcohol and it's going to get you fucked up, but one is just a little bit more strong. Fair to say?
Yeah.
So that's how I started getting hooked on heroin. And it was the same type of negotiation at that point in time. And I can look back on it. I was always crossing lines I said I wouldn't cross. Like, there's no way I would ever smoke weed being younger. There's no way I'll underage drink being a young little square. There's no way I'll ever do heroin. Not a chance I'm ever going to shoot heroin. Years later.
Yeah.
Why would I ever want to smoke heroin again after I shot it? And then it got to a place
It's a
where
waste at that point.
But the self-negotiation, dude, I'm smoking so much heroin. And if I shoot the heroin, I can do less of it, which I'll save money. But also my lungs are getting like fucked up from smoking. It's not good for my health.
What
So
a
I need
novel idea.
What a novel idea. I'm fucking so smart. I'm too smart for my own good. Also, I'm not going to overdose because I stay hydrated and eat a lot of watermelon. I don't know what that had to do with anything. But that's the shit I would tell myself. I'm not going to overdose on heroin because the watermelon's good with the vitamins. It's keeping me hydrated. And when I shoot up, if I smoke a cigarette and drink a Powerade, guess what? It's going to keep my mind off of overdosing. It made no fucking sense. Made no sense.
So wacky when you say that now.
Yeah, or I'd take my phone out, have 911 dialed on my phone like this as I'm shooting a speedball later on, and I'm thinking, if I overdose, in the midst of me falling out overdosing, I'm going to matrix it and hit the green button to call.
I did that shit with my boy on the line. I'm like, yo, It's funny that it's sick, but we have our own dark humor. I would call my boy and I'm about to take a fat one. I need you just to make sure that in 10, 15 seconds that I'm still here. He's like, okay,
yeah,
go.
Did that to
but
my
it was
boy too.
It happened multiple times.
All the time, almost.
One thing good metaphor that came to me about addiction for me is all of these non-negotiable lines in the sand keep getting pushed back until there's nothing left.
There's nothing left. To me, you like shooting.
Aside from I would never commit murder.
Yeah, I wouldn't have to commit murder.
But other than that, it's I've set up people to be robbed. I legitimately had my own pharmacy. When I used to go pick up oxys, it was 90, 80s. This is back when people didn't even want Roxys. Roxys were no, dude, what the fuck are those?
Exactly.
180, 30 Roxys, 360 yellows, and 90 Xanax. And this was on a weekly thing in Texas.
Sure.
So the amount of plus I had 360 Suboxone in the safe, and we were stocked up. There was no running out.
Yeah.
Of course you run out.
Of course. I know what you mean though.
But the point is the sheer the amount. And this is one thing too, is I always try to pay it forward in whatever way that I can, because I don't even know how many people's lives I affected and ruined.
Fucked up by supplying those drugs, right?
I'm talking about, I was also a type of person, and I will kind of give a pat on the back for this. I was around maybe 15, 16 people that overdosed, and I never ever left anyone's side. I either resuscitated them myself or I called 911.
Damn.
Because one non-negotiable for me is I don't give a fuck how many drugs I have on me. I don't care about how much cash I have on me.
Yeah.
This is another human being doing dirt.
Yeah.
And they have a family.
And you're not leaving
People love them and they're suffering, and I'm not leaving him cold dead here on the floor.
Not a chance.
I remember one time too, I was working at a jewelry store at a kind of a get well job. This shit was absolutely insane what was going on there. But I had to deliver an engagement ring to some clients, whatever. Fuck it. I got lunch break, right? So I lock up the store. My boy literally has a $700,000-$800,000 house. It was a very, very nice neighborhood in North Texas. He calls me. He's like, "Yo, we got the dope. We got the coke. Come get high." And this was my lunch break. So I locked up the store. It was me, him, and his girl. We're all whatever. She used to be a phlebotomist, so she's not missing, right? It was there was no she would hit us, whatever. It was perfect. But she decided to do the first shot. She ended up fucking falling out and turning blue, and I couldn't resuscitate her. I had 10 or 11 grand cash on me. There was an 8-ball of coke and about a quarter of heroin. And he's on felony probation for assault with a deadly weapon. So he's like, "Yo, you have to call 911 because it can't come from my phone. I'm gonna go straight to jail." I'm like, "Okay, I'll do it right now, but this is your house." He's like, "Whatever, dude. Then you were just getting high with my girl, and I didn't know about it." Yeah. And I'm like, "Okay, bet. That's the story."
Sure, that's the story.
Whatever. We call 911. The paramedics come. I'm like, "Fuck!" They're here. She's getting Narcan. She's okay. I gotta go. Next thing I know, dude, DEA shows up with a fucking marshal. He's like, "Yeah, we're a private task force. There's been a spike in heroin overdoses.
Damn.
And we're a special unit here to investigate every 911 call." And I'm like, "Motherfucker, I know the law, dude. Give me my shit. I'm leaving."
Yeah.
I was a good Samaritan. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
He's like, "Stand the fuck over there before I put you in handcuffs." I'm like, "Yo, people are at the store. I got to go deliver an engagement ring." He's like, "I don't give a fuck about this engagement ring. My boss is calling me. The clients are calling me." They start searching around. They find everything, dude. They find 10 grand on me cash. I'm like, "Yo, this is about to be really, really bad." She wakes up from her stoop. She fucking she starts saying, everything in the house is mine. Charge me with whatever the fuck you want to charge me. My boyfriend and the other guy are fine. Like, they didn't do anything. And they're like, are you sure about this? By this time, it's almost nighttime. So anyways, long story short, it's like, they didn't take my cash. They did take my cell phone and copied everything in the cell phone and had me come pick it up at the station, which I was like worried about everything they saw in there. But, you know.
Okay.
Anyways, long story short, it was like the things that like happened as a result are like, you tell that story to somebody and there's like, these go on for days. That wasn't just one.
No.
It's like, what the fuck kind of life were you like living?
Yeah.
And
how are you crossing those lines?
How did you sustain it for so long?
How are you crossing these lines constantly that you probably in a normal state of mind would never cross?
Oh, and I just
never
like
do
took
that.
a deep breath, was like, wow, that was crazy. Went home, got high, woke up the next day, took a shower, told my boss like some crazy shit happened. I was at this house, blah, blah, blah. And like, it was fine. They went and picked up the engagement ring the next day and it was like nothing had happened. But it was like, in actuality, that was like insanity.
No, it is insanity. The fact that you could think that's a good idea to go get high in that type of situation when you have a responsibility to whatever you had a responsibility to. It's not the first time you got high. It's not the first time you've had consequences for shit, but this time's different.
Yeah, and then another quick story of like how I started shooting dope, which is the craziest thing ever to say.
Yeah.
Like in this setting or just period. I've shared this story numerous times. So I'm the oldest I have two younger brothers. Me and my middle brother, Dean, we're 11 months apart. So we're Irish twins. We're the same age for 26 days every year. He's like my best friend.
Yeah.
We did a lot of dirt together, whatever. I always look at like, I'm the oldest brother, so I'm like the protector. And like, you know, if anybody ever fucked with him in high school, like they're getting fucked up or anything that comes along with that. And so I like hold that near and dear to my heart. Like family to me is everything.
Sure.
He called me one day. He was at the university, UT in Austin. And I bounced around to a bunch of schools, but I ended up landing back in Texas at Texas State, which is a smaller college in San Marcos, about 35 minutes away. He calls me and he's like, big bro, I need your help. And I'm like, what's up, man? Like we were both doing oxys and stuff. I didn't know he had graduated to the needle at this point or heroin. I'd never done heroin either.
Yeah.
He's like, yo, I met a girl in Miami. I've been shooting dope. I can't stop. I'm scared. I need your help.
Sure.
So I'm like, okay, I'm on my way. So my best friend is driving me in the car and he's like, so what's your plan? And I'm like, this is my plan. I'm going to try what he's on.
To shoot heroin with him.
Yeah, I'm gonna have him inject me with it so that I can understand what he's going through so that I can better be of assistance and protect him and do what we need to do and then we'll get sober together.
Yeah.
And my buddy's like, that sounds like the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my
Yes.
life. And I'm like, well, it's about to happen. He's like, okay, whatever. We got economics at like 1:15. We got to be back. I'm like, okay. We go. My brother's all shaken up. He's at his house. And I tell him the plan. He's like, okay, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. And that was it. He shot me up. And it was like.
Now the game was
actually,
on.
the first one he missed. And my arm swelled up. And I almost grabbed him by the throat. Like, what the fuck? And he's like, oh, he was so high. I'm so sorry. Like, I'll do it right. And then he did it. And it was like, oh. Like. That line in the sand that I would never use needles is gone. And then it was like off and running for about 7 years.
7
together.
years. Once you cross a line. And that goes back to the initial thing we were talking about.
But like, in the truth of it is like, I didn't really intend on, like the sick thing is, and this is how it works, is like I was, as crazy as it sounds, I was really just trying to be like that protector and someone to go like,
but that was your best idea.
That was my bet. And that's how jaded the thinking gets when you're all fucked out. Yeah, man.
And that's how someone like myself ends up shooting large amounts of speedballs and ending up homeless. No friends, no fucking family, no money, one pair of clothes to use. That's how you end up convincing yourself that you should shoot heroin with your brother because your thinking's fucked. And I'm making that point. I'm not to fucking say, oh, we're so wild, we're so fucking crazy. This applies to people across the board with addiction, man. They end up putting themselves in positions they'll never be in because their thinking is sick. So people are like, oh, the diseases and addictions, it's a fucking cop-out. I don't look at diseases and addiction like you have strep throat and you take antibiotics and it's all good, right? To me, it's like disease thinking. Your thinking is diseased. The way you interact with the world is disease, and that needs to be fixed, right? So that's how we come up with ideas like that. That's how I come up with the way I'm going to stay alive is I'm going to dial 911. I'm going to do this. The way that I'm going to convince myself to shoot heroin is because it's a financial decision. I'm not a financial guy, dude. I make good money these days, but I still not that great with it. But especially then when I had no money, I wasn't fucking great with that. But I'm acting like I'm going to be a financial strategist because it's better if I don't nod off at work, so I should buy cocaine to mix with my heroin. And why am I sniffing the heroin and sniffing the coke and shooting the heroin? It's costing me too much. I need to save more money. Not I need to not do drugs like this, but it's a good idea for me to go to a Walgreens, get a 3-pack of 29 gauge needles so I can fucking hit these other veins, whatever the fuck it may be. And now I have sold myself the lie of this is my best idea. And then I end up homeless. And I was telling you a story, and I was telling Sebastian the story. Like, end up in funky situations, dude. You just at the end of my addiction, I just want to tell this on fucking camera because it's fucking funny to me, dude, and it's fucking crazy. Because the way I live now, I run a fantastic company. My friends are fucking amazing people. My family's wonderful. And I have a lot of fucking hope and like love in my life, which I didn't have before. But I'm on the streets with open wounds in my arm, blood all over my shirt.
You really just weren't good with a needle, were you?
I think I was good with the needle until
Jeez,
how I got actually. So how I got these marks, I was living in this, I was renting this room in like Van Nuys or Sherman Oaks, and the CVS next to me, the CVS never sold needles. You need like a prescription, and I didn't have a car, had no fucking really money.
Oh, so that's all from like Dole.
Dole needles. This was Dole needles. So for about 2 weeks, all I would do is I would go to the CVS to pull money out, go across the street to the Wendy's to get a 4 for $4 meal. Then I'd call the delivery service for heroin and coke, and I had 20 different 29 gauge needles that I would circle through each day because I just didn't want to go anywhere. All I wanted to do was just shoot fucking speedballs. And I blew out this, I blew out that, and I'm like, oh, I got some ropes here, but I'm fucking popping off my skin. I'm jamming. 20 of them, dude, for about 2 weeks straight. And I'm fucking probably committing fraud, probably hustling unemployment. I don't know how I was making my money. It's interesting how you will find a way to make money on drugs, but I ran out, but I found a way, dude. And then I put myself in a position where I ended up leaving that house because I was getting kicked out of there. I couldn't afford to fucking pay anything. A bunch of weird shit was going on there anyways, but I was the weirdest of the weird. And then instead of...
I remember that little house with my homie that I connected you with.
Which one? Oh, with Vince. Well, that was before that. Vince was high. I was high. Shout out to Vince if you watch this. You're a good man, dude. I know it didn't end the best, but we were both fucking spun. But that was way after that. So this is after me going to jail for the longest I ever did was like 6 months. Then I'm back on the street. Then I'm living with my dad. Like, so again, to give some perspective, my dad, like as I said, comes from good, considerable means. I was living in his house in Hidden Hills, which is doors down from Kim Kardashian, Kanye, and Drake and The Weeknd. And now I'm on the streets in fucking Reseda, left this house, and there's this older gay dude. And I only say there's an issue with any gay people. It's just a funny dynamic. It's a part of the story. So now I'm on the streets because I can't afford to pay rent. Not going well with the person I was renting a room from. And I knew this guy from one of my best friends because he used to do drugs and I had a place to go. And I spent 7 months. Never once did anything gay sexually. However, the whole dynamic was a little funky, dude. I'm living there, getting this guy addicted to cocaine and heroin, hustling his fucking family for fucking money because he's an older, like 50-year-old dude. And actually, he died 2 weeks after I got arrested.
Wow.
Say it was a heart attack or an overdose. I didn't know that until actually recently. But this dude, my life basically has now become this big life with all this potential. Now my life is passing me by. I'm watching all my friends have kids, get married. I'm not a part of any of that shit, nor should I. I was so pissed at that time. How could they not invite me? This is what my life's becoming. Starting with that one decision. Well, not starting with that, but it got really bad from going from Norcos to heroin. This is years later now, the progression of it. And all my best decisions lead me here to living with this guy in this small little apartment in Reseda, having no job, no clothes. My friends don't want to talk to me. I'm a fucking loser. I'm just a straight loser. And all I want to do is shoot dope in his bathroom, watch Joe Rogan podcast, come out, eat string cheese, cereal, and fucking watch South Park, dude. That's it. And this guy's always like, so let me suck your dick. I'm like, no. That's not happening today, David. I just want to shoot speedballs, right? Like that was the dynamic every fucking day. And then I would do weird shit, dude, which probably is more gay than doing gay sexual shit, which is essentially like I'd pretend I'm the fuck. He didn't know how to shoot himself up. So I shot him up, dude. But he would pretend he's a sick patient and I'm the doctor. So I'd be like, David, wait in the waiting room. This motherfucker is living inside of a fucking studio in Reseda. And this is some funky shit, dude. And so I'd go into the kitchen and I'd be shooting my drugs and I'd be spun the fuck out. And I'd be like, and I'd pretend I'm the fucking whatever, the assistant. And I'd be like, David, the doctor's ready to see you. Come to the doctor's office. It was really his kitchen with my blood on the fucking roof because I'm missing and I'm clogging rigs and it's shooting everywhere. And so I'm fucking tripping the fuck out. And so there's this man, it looks like a Dexter thing, blood everywhere. My arm's still dripping. I forgot to untie and I'm just so spun. And I'm like, so what are your symptoms? And he's like, well, I just this and that. I was like, don't worry. I have the medicine. I'm going to give you a death shot. And I'd give this guy a massive shot of cocaine and heroin. And then I'd say, okay, now you need to sit down and drink Powerade and smoke a cigarette. Okay. And like, that was my way of like saying, this is how you don't die. And that was my life, dude. That was like the pinnacle, other than getting unemployment alerts on my phone. Like your money just hit, other than the dealer saying 5 minutes away, 5 minutes. And I'd be calling like a psycho. You said you were 5 minutes away 77 minutes ago, dude. What the fuck? Freaking out about that, walking to 7-Eleven or the liquor store. My life was small. My life was full of like just disappointment, empty promises, broken promises, all that type of shit. And now it's not that. But it all started with fucking crossing the line. It all started with getting away with things like you were talking about, how you got away with things. And then it's a long rebuilding process. So that story is one, for you people to use to make fun of me, and two, to show the insanity of drug addiction. So I got arrested at his house. I did my last, how I got sober this time is I was there for 7 months. He couldn't fucking stand me. He probably called the cops on me because he probably found out I fucking was stealing from him, which I was stealing a lot from him, and hijacking his whole place. He'd knock on the bathroom. He said, fuck out of here. Don't fuck with my focus on shooting my drugs and whatever Joe Rogan's saying. Fucking psycho, dude. But I got a weird knock at the door, and it was a loud knock, a police knock in the bathroom as I'm sitting there shooting my last 20 of heroin and my last 20 of coke. And I said, who is it? And they're like, LAPD, open up. I said, fuck. This fucking bathroom is in like inside of a closet. If there was a window to get out of or a way to escape, I would have bounced. I was stuck. So I had a fucking shot. This wound on my arm was open at this point in time. And so I'm shooting into this open vein and I hit. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to jail because I had a warrant for my arrest. For some reason, I didn't go to probation for 9 straight months. I said, you know what? They're not drug testing me. I'm not going to get burnt, but I don't want to go to probation because I want to shoot speedballs. That was what I wanted to do, and that's what I did. And I'm like, I'm taking a shit. Bad timing. And they're like, well, you need to hurry. I said, okay. So I'm about to fucking take this last little bit of heroin and coke and shove it up my ass because I knew I'm going to jail. And I said, you know what? It's not going to be as good if I do it in jail as if I shoot it up. So I cook up another shot. Cops are knocking as I'm picking up a shot. The fucking still shitting, dude. As I'm fucking whatever. Almost spilled this shit, tripped out. Fucking drew it right up. Another vein right there. Wide open wound. Hit that shit, spun. Put on some deodorant. Fucking splash cold water in my face. I said, this is the last time I'm going to see it. And I go out there and they're like, you're Mason Olshever? I said, yep. They're like, you're a wanted man? I was like, apparently so. And they're like, yeah, hands behind your back. I said, okay. And that was the beginning of me being sober, and then kicking in jail. That was the second or no, third, fourth time. But that time I only did about 2.5 months on a probation violation just for not going. And that's when I got into treatment after I got out of there, and I started the journey when I reconnected with you. And you started taking me through work as I was going through therapy, and I was realizing why I was so fucked up. And I still realize why I'm fucked up all the time. I still go to therapy. I do this. I fucking stay connected with things like being grateful for shit, because my whole life I thought shit was owed to me. I'm supposed to have good things, I'm supposed to have the best of this. I'm something special when I wasn't shit. And I still don't think I'm shit in that regard, like the shit, right? I believe I'm a good fucking person, and I believe I was always a good fucking person, and I believe most people that struggle with addiction are good people, but their bullshit wins out, and they can't ever be that person. They want so bad, like you wanted so badly to be there for your friend's family. I'm sure you meant that, but you're so stuck in your shit, you can't be that. And I'm sure that's true for so many people watching this shit. And so if my hope is if people can take anything from this episode, this show, what we've done with our little anecdotes through each episode, is there's hope to change and be different no matter how bad it is. I may never be able to make things right with certain people. You might not be able to make right with things on your timeline, but if you can live different and live better and make things right in new interactions in new ways, then you'll find a peace inside you haven't had, and you'll want to do less of those destructive things. And you could be someone that people count on. Like, I'm that person. People can count on me. And I don't have to say that being arrogant. It's just the facts. Fair to say?
Very fair. One thing I want to say, too, and thank you for being vulnerable and honest.
Yeah.
There's a Michael Jordan, I think it's a Michael Jordan quote that says, "I can only compete with what I'm capable of."
Hmm.
And today, that sticks with me and resonates a lot more than what it did 6 odd years ago before I started the work. Another thing also is, obviously, it's never too late to start at whatever age, whatever you've done, whatever you know, like whatever you think is done that can never be forgiven. It's like one of the main things is like, you got to watch the self-talk and how you talk to yourself.
Most
I think
important
that's
thing.
something that I've learned that is like a tidbit, and it sounds like laughable or whatever, but I'm serious. Like, you live within your head more than you talk to anybody
Yeah.
else, more than you see anybody else. Make it, try to, at least, I'm not saying I'm perfect at
No,
it,
fair.
but try to make it like a safe, funny, loving space for yourself, because
Yeah.
those things manifest in the relationships that you have outside in the world, the way that you perceive the world, your interactions with other people. And then another thing too is like, ask yourself, or I try to ask myself, what do I want in life?
Sure.
What is it that I want? And then how can I get there? What are actionable, real steps that I can do to get there?
Correct.
How do I practice more humility in my life? Like, little things like this that seem to, like, that will never move the needle, start adding up and start changing the trajectory of the way that you
Builds
live.
momentum, dude.
Yeah,
Builds
interact, how
momentum.
you interact with other people. Like, I know this is cliche, but you know, I sell real estate, and they're very, very high net worth people, very, very rich people. But like, I'll treat a janitor the same way that I treat
Yeah.
somebody that's about to close on a huge investment property. Why? Not because anybody's judging me, but because that's the right thing to do as
Fair.
a human being.
It is.
Doesn't mean that I'm not like shallow and I don't like to floss and don't think I need all of these
Yeah.
things, but like on the core level, it's like, I see that person. They're working, they're honest, they're doing what they can do, they're doing the best they can.
Fuck
And
yeah.
like, I validate them. So it's just like little things like that. And
Alright.
then, you know,
Yeah.
putting in the work. Like, you're not going to just, understanding that it's a process and it's a journey, but like, try to enjoy it along the way. Like we started
to.
in the beginning. We didn't get to where we were overnight.
Nope.
And we didn't get to where we were today overnight.
Absolutely not.
It's as one of the persons that I look up to, one of the rabbis in our corner, is like, you know, move a grain of sand a day.
Sure.
And I know that sounds very granular and whatever, but change one small thing a day.
That's it.
Those small things turn into habits. Those habits turn into routines. And like, before you know it, like 6 months goes by and you've transformed or moved so much further than where you were.
Sure.
And that's really it. Like, you know,
It
there's always people around that can relate and that can help you.
Sure.
The thought of like, oh, I'm special, they don't understand, like, that shit's
No,
bullshit.
motherfuckers
That shit
understand.
will kill you.
Yeah, it will. That shit that you keep inside will actually kill you.
But there are people out there, like the way that someone reached me in, the way the community that took me in and saw me and loved me until I could do that for myself and now can do it for others. They're there.
Yeah.
That's like, they've made it a part of their days and life's work. And all I'm trying to say is that there's always help that's there. You just need to reach out and, you know, ask for it.
There's a way out is the point.
Always.
Either whether you guys want to take us as an example or not, the fact is we used to destroy our lives and the lives of others around us, and life is completely on the opposite end of the spectrum today. And it took a while, and it took practice, and it took patience for the changes to happen. And went from a mindset of instant gratification to setting things up for delayed gratification. And if you can implement that mindset with your values on a day-to-day life, shit will change for you. And so for the people out there that message me, that are struggling with addiction, they keep relapsing, the family that's like, my son can't come home, my daughter this, my daughter that, I don't know what I can do for them. Like, I'm not saying they're going to be us or succeed. They very well may not. And I very well, if I stop doing what I'm doing, may die too. If I get back into that mindset, I very well may. But the fact is, like, that change is possible. It's happening for people every day. Just as people are dying every day, just as 6 people in the last few months have died, just as 20 plus have died in the past few years, and that's normal to me, as painful as it is. That doesn't need to be the story, because people can change and do better. And that's why we started this show. That's why we're doing this. That's why we tell the stories of other people on here. Of course, the last few episodes took on a life of its own, and of course we fucking rolled with that, and anyone who's got a problem with that, eat a dick. But other than that, man, everyone that's here is actually, you know who I'm speaking to. There's actually people that really are reaching out about when we're putting out another episode, that they're connecting to just by seeing us do our damn thing. And that shit is cool, man. Because I couldn't feel good about myself no matter what I did, no matter how much I have. And just me saying weird shit, funky shit, trying my best, succeeding or failing on this fucking camera, and that's good enough for people. Oh, what a fucking feeling, dude. That's this episode. Got anything to close with? That's pretty
No,
good.
that was great.
We done, baby.